music. You can dance to it, sing with it, fall in love to it. Unless you're a Dalek, of course, then it's just noise. So, tribute time in a way, because Murray Gold is leaving Doctor Who. And I think ultimately that's probably a good thing. I mean, he's been great. I love the Doctor Who music. I own not every series soundtrack, but a lot of them. And there's some amazing stuff on there. But at the same time, I think it's probably a good time for some fresh blood. It's probably a good time for a new approach, a new sound. And so, as much as I love Murray Gold's work, I'm very interested to see what comes next. But he is out. So I'm going to do something that I wasn't sure I was ever going to do, because I get very iffy about using music clips in my videos because it's liable to get flagged for copyright or whatever. And that is probably still going to happen, but I'd be remiss if I didn't do this, because the man deserves it. And so here we go with my picks for the 10 best Murray Gold tracks from Doctor Who. This was really hard. I could have made a 50, I could have made a 20. Super easy. And there's so many tracks that I love that didn't quite make the list. This is Gallifrey, the Cybermen, the Lone Dalek, Valedichum, the New Doctor, Words Win Wars, just so many great tracks that didn't quite make the cut. So let's get to the ones that did, starting with number 10, Melody Pond. I touched on this music when I discussed the episode, A Good Man Goes to War, and the fact that the music that comes in at the end of this episode, when we get the reveal about Riversong, about who she is, about what that name actually means, to me is sold and solidified by that music, by that haunting vocal, that with that air of mystery and yet hopefulness to it, does so much to sell this moment that maybe not everybody bought into. I did. And I think the music is a big part of it. And it's a terrific track that, like I said, it just weaves this mix of mystery and hope together. And that's tricky, because mysterious sounding music tends to lean more in the kind of creepy, spooky area. So to have a sense of mystery, but also have just this sense of things are going to be okay, and this is good. To have both those things come across in the music at the same time, that is dang impressive. Number 9, the Blink Suite. So, one of the more low-key tracks that Murray Gold ever did. I think some people criticize his music as being overly bombastic, and there's some validity to that, although at times I think I would blame more the choices for where to place his music as opposed to what he actually wrote, because some things just got excessively overused and placed and put in places that didn't make sense. But this is one of his more low-key offerings, and it sets the mood for one of the best episodes of Doctor Who, modern era Doctor Who, so well. It sets that tone, it maintains that tone, the melancholy, the sadness, but the creeping sense that we're being watched right now. And I'm not sure from where, but we're definitely not alone. And again, communicating that kind of stuff through music in a way that really did add so much to the episode. It's just slow and somber, but slightly unsettling. It's a really effective track. Number 8, the Doctor's theme. Now, when I talked about the episode Twice Upon a Time, and I mentioned this thing. I personally called it specifically the Ninth Doctor's theme. Technically, it is the Doctor's theme for 9 and 10, but there are other tracks that in my mind became more like 10's signature sort of theme, even though they weren't called that. So in my mind, I still think of this as 9's theme. And it has that air of mystery that Murray Gold is good at bringing when he wants to. And again, just those little hints of the vocals, of this haunting vocal sound, which he does tend to bring in when he has vocalists take part in these tracks. And there's also a sense of loneliness, of loss to it, which, I know it was around for Tennant as well, but for Eccleston especially, was perfect. It told you so much about him as a character, and just enhanced a great performance that we were already getting from a terrific actor in this part. It's a really effective theme. Number 7, one that people may not be expecting. My angel put the devil in me.
My bad, bad angel put the devil in me. You put the devil in me.
I gotta be real specific. The soundtrack version, not the version that Tallulah sings in Daleks in Manhattan, the episode proper. The studio recording of this song. I love this song. And Murray Gold did write it. I checked. I made certain that, I didn't just attribute it to him because it was on the soundtrack. He did actually compose this, right? Yes, he did. It's on the list. I have a weird relationship with this sort of 30s, jazzy, burlesque kind of music, which is that I love things that evoke it. I don't love a ton of the authentic music from the time, though. It's weird. But this is the kind of thing that I love, because it evokes that era and that sound and that sense of show and fun so well with these terrific vocals and these fun lyrics. And honestly, I don't know how many times I've listened to this song. It's so much dang fun. I've done performance numbers to this song. I love it that much. I gotta bring it back. I gotta do that again. Number 6, All the Strange Creatures. This one kind of, to my understanding, originally written for the promo going into season 3. And in my mind, this is the track that effectively became Tennant's theme. And I know it's not, but I feel like it got used in the show as if it was, and I think it works for that. It's more a sense of adventure, as opposed to, sort of the mystery and melancholy of the theme that had been a holdover from Eccleston's time. This has a sense of, here comes the threat, here we go. And, it has that mix of intensity and kind of fighting the good fight, and in however music is able to exemplify that. This is one of his kind of bombastic tracks, but I think it really works here, and especially because it does have moments where it eases back a little bit and then it kicks in again. It just, this works really well for me. Number 5, Doomsday. This was another one that people should have seen coming if you saw some of my previous lists on Doctor Who episodes, because I've talked before about Doomsday, and the music really, really does a lot to sell the sadness of Rose being trapped in another dimension. And the way it kicks in, and again, those haunting vocals, but also the strings coming in with the sense of longing as she's on one side of a wall and he's on the other, and you look at that and you think they should be able to break through that wall and see each other, but they can't. They can't. They won't be able to. And the music underscores all of that perfectly. Her desperate banging on the wall, his just leaning against it, knowing that he's not going to see her again. And the music just brings it on home completely. Number 4, Amy and the TARDIS. Now, I knew I was going to have some version of I Am the Doctor on here somewhere, because that, I kind of mentioned before, things being overused and used in places where they didn't necessarily work. And I really think that happened to I Am the Doctor, which is a very good track, for the record. I enjoy it. I even enjoy a lot of the variants of it. I mentioned Words Win Wars, as one that I considered putting on here. But I didn't want this list to be taken up with variations of I Am the Doctor. I wanted there to only be one entry on here that included that theme very, noticeably. And the reason I picked this one over the actual track of I Am the Doctor is there's something about the way it eases in, and the slowness and the quietness and the sort of childlike awe of how it starts out with this very just light and almost kind of tinkling kind of sound to it that goes with Amy first stepping in, and then when it's time to actually get that thing going and take an adventure somewhere, it kicks up and into I Am the Doctor. And there's something about the transition of those things from Amy's theme into I Am the Doctor put together in this one track, and the way they transition and complement each other, that I think elevates both to more than what they are on their own. Number 3, A Good Man. So, yeah, I've basically included what either are the official or what I consider to be the themes of all the Doctors of the modern era. And I like Capaldi's best. I think it strikes the right balance of strength and, also retaining a bit of that mystery, but it never quite gets to the bombastic, possibly a little too much levels of All the Strange Creatures or I Am the Doctor. Certainly, there's something about the build that, as it just sort of works its way up. And again, in this particular track, it's that sort of do that is played throughout numerous tracks in the soundtracks that came out during Capaldi's run. But there's something about the transition into it with this one, which is similar to what I said about Amy and the TARDIS. It starts easier, starts lighter, it starts more sort of, where do we go? And then it starts kicking in and it builds, and I love the build and I love the strength of it. And it doesn't feel as boom, it just feels like, yeah, just standing tall. Number 2, this is another track that I talked about when I talked about this episode. I talked about the music. The Impossible Planet. This music, this is a singular piece of work from Murray Gold as far as I'm concerned, because it sounds like nothing else that was ever on the show. And for the episodes that it appears in, it is perfect. The sense of loneliness, the sense of isolation, the sense of melancholy, and this sound that is so unlike Doctor Who. What it sounds like more than anything, honestly, it sounds like a track from Firefly, from one of the more dour episodes of that. And it just doesn't sound like Doctor Who, but it's perfect for this lonely planet orbiting a black hole that shouldn't be there, and people who should not be on it but are, and just, what are we doing here? And it's not just the track, it's the points at which it's used, because like there's moments like when Toby is out on the planet's surface, which should be a death sentence, and he turns and he's got, and he gets spotted out there by a crewmate, and that normally would be like a dun 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 kind of thing, but it's not. It's just this quiet music. You shouldn't be out there. What's going on? It's so effective, and it enhances an already brilliant episode, brilliant two-parter. Man, part of me wants to say I wish there was more music like this in the show, but somehow it works just existing for this. And my personal pick for the number one best track that Murray Gold composed for Doctor Who, The Greatest Story Never Told. This track was for another two-parter that I absolutely love, which is the Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead two-parters. It's the introduction of River Song's story. And all of these are great in episode. I personally think all of these are worth listening to in isolation. What I love about this track specifically, besides just being great music for reasons that I've talked about almost everything else on this list for, the way it builds, the triumph of it, the way it weaves in themes that we've heard before and gives us a new sense, a new meaning behind them, and things like that. But this track, it's not about any one moment in it. It's about the whole thing, because I feel like this track tells a complete story. It's like Peter and the Wolf. It's got that kind of progression as it moves along, and you can feel every dip in the story and this sense of God, where it's falling apart, to no, we know what we can do, and to a sense of triumph at the end. And it really does, in just, I don't know what it is, 5-6 minutes, feels like it delivers a complete story in music form only, even without the visuals. You add it to the visuals and everything becomes all the better. This track is everything. If somebody were to ask me, what is Doctor Who music like? I would give them this track to listen to, and I'd say that right there, that is not only Doctor Who music, that is Doctor Who. That is modern Doctor Who in a nutshell, in one track. I love it. So those are my picks for the 10 best tracks that Murray Gold ever composed for Doctor Who. I have no idea what the response to this video is going to be like, or what people's thoughts are going to be. I will be real curious to hear. So, what are your thoughts on the list that I gave? What tracks would you put on your own personal top 10 list? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's all those stuff for you to do. Support me on Patreon and like and subscribe and Twitter, podcast, blah, 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 blah. Links for all that stuff is down in the description, of course. So until next time, this council is adjourned.